quality of land title surveys varies a lot. So on one end of the spectrum, you've got really, really crummy, poor quality surveys that are probably negligent. And we find those in our practice. I run across them here at Redefined Horizons. And then at the other end, you have really high quality land title surveys. But there's a big variation, and the surveys you see are all over the spectrum. And that's important. That variety and quality is important because land title surveys play a really important role in the commercial real estate market in the United States. So they're a tool that's relied upon by lenders and title insurers, and to some extent by purchasers, to understand exactly what is the quality of the boundary surveying and the land title that's related to the parcel that they're going to purchase. And so when surveyors do a poor job of a land title survey or an ALTA survey, they're also called ALTA surveys, when the surveyor does a poor job of that, it really increases the risk for all the parties involved, and it's a horrible thing. And it's one of the ways that our real property system or real estate system in the United States can break down. So when you understand that there's a real wide variety in the quality of those surveys that fill a really important role in our commercial real estate system, it raises a couple of questions. One of those is why? Why does the quality of those surveys vary so much across surveys? You can see huge differences even in the same community or the same neighborhood. So why is that? And then secondly, if there's a large variation in quality, who should care? Who should care that they're getting a good survey? And there's parties involved in a transaction that don't care as much, and there's parties that should care a whole lot. And so, what's the difference? Who should really care about the quality of a survey? Who should really care that a good quality land title survey is being produced as part of a land title transaction? And if you're that person, if you're that organization, or if you represent that organization, why is it important that you make sure a quality survey gets done? So we're going to try and answer those two questions in this video. So we want to start with why do we see the variety in quality of land title surveys, of ALTA surveys? Why do we see some that are so bad and others that are so excellent? And why is there such a large spread? And there's a couple reasons, 2 or 3 reasons that I'll give you. So the first one is simple. It just has to do with the quality of the land surveyor that's doing the work. So land surveyors don't like to admit this, many of them, but there's good surveyors and there's bad surveyors. And there's probably more bad surveyors than there are good. And I'm embarrassed to admit that as a land surveyor, but it's the truth, especially when it comes to boundary surveying. There's a lot of surveyors that, even though they're licensed to practice in their state, they probably shouldn't be doing boundary surveys. I see a lot of really bad work. I just had one that was sent to me a couple weeks ago, a survey that was done in my own hometown of Stockton. It was a land title survey of a commercial parcel in the northeast part of town, and it was negligent. It was one of the worst surveys I had ever seen. And so that happens. It happens a lot, unfortunately. And really, when you have a surveyor doing that kind of work, it's really dangerous. And it's actually worse than no survey at all, because what a crummy survey like that does is it provides the people that are involved in the transaction with a false sense of security or a false sense of confidence that they shouldn't have. I'd rather there be no survey at all. So the quality of the surveyor doing the work is a huge factor in the quality of the land title survey that's done. And to be honest, a lot of the reason we get crummy land title surveys is because people don't understand how important it is to select the right surveyor, and they just go out and find the cheapest surveyor they can find. And in many things that are related to professional services, you get what you pay for. And so people get poor quality land surveys because they hire the cheapest surveyor they can find. So the second reason, that's the second reason. So the first is the quality of the land surveyor, huge variety there. Licensing helps a little bit, but it doesn't solve that problem. And then the second thing is the way clients are choosing surveyors. So if you're just calling 5 different surveyors to get a bid, in air quotes, or you're working with one of these national land title survey brokers, you're going to get the cheapest survey they can find. And it's going to show. It's going to show in the quality of the survey. And then finally, the last thing is it's the scope of work that the client negotiates with the surveyor. And what a good surveyor does is he helps the client get a scope of work that's going to meet their needs. And it's not too little and it's not too much. And either one of those extremes are a bad thing. So, you know, if a bad surveyor knows you're going to select based just purely on price, he'll give you a bare bones scope. Well, that might win him the work, but it may not meet your needs as a client. And on the other hand, you might have a surveyor that's trying to sell you things you don't need. And in either case, the surveyor is not being ethical. That's why it's so important to build a relationship with a good quality land surveyor. So either one of those extremes aren't what you want. What you want is a surveyor that's going to talk to you, ask you the right questions. We talk about that in another video, the 5 questions a surveyor should ask before you start your boundary survey. A good surveyor is going to talk to you about what you need, and then he's going to make sure that you get a scope that's tailored to your needs. He's not going to go bare bones and make sure you get what you need, but he's not going to sell you things you don't need either. There's a happy medium ground there, middle ground. So, but that can have an effect. You know, if the surveyor's preparing a bare bones scope and he's not helping his client figure out what they need, you're going to get a bare bones survey. Right? So those are the 3 reasons you see poor quality surveys. The quality of the land surveyor, a lot of bad surveyors out there. The way the client selects the surveyor for the work, you get low bid, you go low bid, select on low bid, low price, you're going to get what you pay for. And then the final reason is a lot of land surveyors aren't helping their clients figure out exactly what they need and what they don't need in their land title survey. And helping the client choose the Table A items is an example of that. We talked about Table A in some other videos. So, that's why you see such a variety in the quality of land title surveys. So that brings us to the next question, the second question we wanted to answer in the video, which is, who should care and who doesn't care? And the people that should care, why is it important that they care about the quality of the survey? So let's make this easy. Let's start with the one person that probably does not care about the quality of the land title survey, and that is the seller. Now, let me say right here that I'm talking in general terms about the way the financial incentives work, and I'm going to explain those to you. You know, people respond to incentives. There are always exceptions to these rules. So you may have unusual circumstances where you've just, for some reason, you got a seller that really does care about the quality of the survey. But as a general rule, the seller does not care. So, in fact, the seller a lot of times does not want a surveyor that's doing a diligent job, because he doesn't want the surveyor to find any problems that might blow up the deal. And usually the seller's broker feels the same way. It's a little more dangerous for the seller's broker to feel that way, and we'll talk about why in a few minutes. But as a general rule, the seller, he just wants to get the deal closed. He does not want a surveyor snooping around. He wants the cheapest survey he can find, fastest survey he can find, or she can find. So, as a general rule, if I'm doing a land title survey, I don't like working for the seller, because the seller's incentives and my incentives the seller's incentives and my desire to do a good job are not aligned. Right? That's generally speaking. All right. So, who should care? And there's some folks that should care about the quality of the land title survey. A lot of times they don't. That's part of what we're trying to do with this video, is educate people so that they understand when they should care. So who's here? Let's go through a list, of people in the transaction, a commercial real estate transaction, that should really care about the quality of the land title survey. And I'm going to go through. So the first one is the buyer's broker. Okay, so if you're a real estate agent or broker representing the buyer, you should care about the quality of the land title survey. Why? Why should you care? Well, first of all, you have a duty to your client to make sure that they go into that deal eyes wide open and they don't get saddled with a lemon parcel or with a parcel that has some kind of boundary or title problem. So that's important. And you have a legal duty in most states to make sure that your client is fully aware of any potential problems with the parcel. The second reason is buyers, brokers should be worried about their professional reputation. You sell somebody a parcel that has a bunch of boundary and land title problems, and they tell all their friends in the commercial real estate industry, that is not good for you as a broker or an agent. So the buyer's broker should be interested about the quality of the survey for those reasons. The second reason is the buyer's attorney. Not all commercial real estate transactions have an attorney involved. I think in California, that's a really good idea almost all the time, because our real estate system is so complex and the property is so expensive. But if the buyer does happen to have a land attorney involved, the attorney should also care about the quality of the survey for the same reasons that the buyer's broker cares. The attorney has an important legal duty, what we call fiduciary duty, to protect their buyer and to uncover potential problems that could later harm their buyer. And attorneys should also be worried about their reputation. If you're a land attorney doing due diligence on a transaction and you miss a problem because you got a crummy survey, that is not good for your reputation. So the buyer's broker and the buyer's attorney should care very much about the quality of the survey. The seller's broker should also care. Now, I said they should care. Oftentimes they don't care, but they should care. Why? Because sellers, brokers have the same duties to their buyer as the buyer's broker. Not exactly the same, but they also have a legal duty to disclose information to the buyer, and they can be liable legally in certain circumstances if there's a boundary or title problem with the parcel and they didn't do their part to make sure that the buyer was aware of that. Finally, the title company should care about getting a quality survey. So why should the title company care? Well, the title company should care because they're the one that's insuring the title on the parcel. And so they have a major incentive to make sure that they are aware of any problems that are coming up, because they either want to fix those problems or have them excluded from the title insurance coverage. So they want to be alerted to any issues, and they are oftentimes on the hook for damages related to boundary and title problems with the parcel if there is a lawsuit. And so oftentimes what will happen is the lender or the buyer will sue both the surveyor and the title company. That's fairly common. So the title insurance company wants to make sure they're getting a good survey so they can properly assess the risk and tailor the title insurance policy to the specifics of the particular parcel. So the last person that should really care, the last party that should really care, is the buyer or the buyer's lender. And the reason why is ultimately they're stuck with whatever they purchase, right? So they want to know way early on in the process if there are potential boundary or title problems with a piece of property. And it's in their interest, right? Buyers beware. Buyers need to make sure they're doing their due diligence. And the lenders, oftentimes it's the lenders that really need to know, because they're on the hook. If something goes sideways and the buyer walks away from a loan, the lender's on the hook, right? That's their money that's on the line. And they need to understand, are they going to be covered by title insurance? And if not, why? And how do they make sure they don't get stuck with a parcel they can't sell because it's not marketable because of the title issues? So as a general rule, if we have a choice, we prefer to work for the buyer, the buyer's broker, or the lender. That's who we want to work for. That's who I want my contract with, because those are the people that have the skin in the game. Their incentives align with my desire to do a good quality land title survey. So there's some things we didn't talk about in this video. Why are some buyers apathetic? It seems like some buyers don't care about the quality of the survey. Why are some lenders apathetic? Some lenders don't care. They want the cheapest price they can get. Why are some title companies apathetic? They should care. A lot of them don't. And why are there some sellers that kind of buck the trend and actually get a good quality land title survey when they are going to put a commercial property on the market? What I want to do is cover those questions in another video, because this video has gone a little long. But to summarize here, the quality of land title surveys matters a lot. It varies depending on who you get, right, and how you select, and how the contract is negotiated. So quality matters. There's a huge variety in quality. It's important. You should care about the quality of your land title survey. Who should care? Primarily the buyer, the buyer's broker, and the lender should care. They've got the most exposure, right? So they should make sure. Don't let your seller or your seller's broker select the land title survey, the surveyor that's going to do the land title survey, because all they're going to want is the cheapest price they can get as fast as they can get. They are not concerned about quality. Don't do that, lenders and buyers brokers and buyers attorneys. Make sure you have some say in selecting a good local land surveyor to do your title survey.